Chapter 8. The chapter begins about talking about an area in Maine called the Toad Road, and it's basically an area where people go hiking, and there's a river, and people go swimming, and it is a spot where teenagers like to hang out. And the story is about Bill. Bill's a teenager, but back on the 60s, and Bill has a Ford, a 67 Ford, and he's just a regular teenager, and he has friends, and he likes to go hang out at this place called the Toad Road. And one night, he's with his friends, and they're just hanging out in the car in this area, and they notice a big bright light. It was a small light actually. That was, at first they thought it was a star, but the star began descending, and it was hovering above the power lines. And Bill and his friends were like surprised and frightened because they were like, what is this? And they noticed that this light, they could see windows, and this light was hovering above the power lines, and it was shooting like little lights were coming off this object, this other light, and they were just coming out of it from below. And Bill and his friends are surprised, but that's all that happened when they went there. And they were so fascinated with this that they made a habit to go back to the Toad Road, to the same area, to look for the same object. And in many times, each time they will go, they will see the same object, the same light that was like, they saw the light, and they saw like little lights coming from below this light. And this became kind of like a habit of just going to the same place and watch all these UFOs. And one night they went back, and they said they saw the same thing, the little lights coming from this light. And this time they saw like a massive light, like a massive object above the usual object. And this giant light was also shooting like little lights from beneath. And they were just fascinated. And but that's all that will happen, just these spectacle lights. So on another night, the boys, they decide to bring their dates with them, and they also brought beer. And because they were a little bit drunk, and they were with their dates, they wanted to like show that they were tough and they are bravado. So the same thing happened. They brought their dates to the place. They were drinking, and the lights appear again above the power lines. So they decide to be tough and get out of the car and get close to the lights. The girls follow them. I forgot to mention that because they brought beer, Bill decided to put the beers on the back of the car and cover them with his coat, which was it was kind of like the jacket that the Marlboro man used to wear, a corduroy jacket. So he used his coat to hide the beer because he was a minor. And then they got out of the car with his friend Samuel and the dates, the girls, to get as close to the light as possible. But the girls became frightened and they also got scared and they were like, oh, this is a little bit too much. So they decided to like leave the place without any further event because it was just a little bit too much for them. So the next morning, Bill remembered that he left his coat on the car. So he went to his car and he could only find one of the sleeves torn from the jacket and the rest of the jacket was missing. So Bill suspected that his friend Samuel had something to do with this. So they got into an argument over this, and the Samuel and the other friends decided like, Bill, you overreacted. We don't want anything. We don't want to go to that place with you anymore. So he got into a little argument with his friends. So Bill was like, forget them. I know I'm scared, but I'm gonna go back to that place anyway because I'm just fascinated by these lights. So one night he decides to go back. He only lives like a few miles away from this place. So one night he goes back and he's driving to the parking area and he sees something on the middle of the road. He drives around it thinking that it was a dead animal and he didn't want to run over it. He parks his car, he goes to see this thing, and then he notices that it's actually the missing part, the rest of the jacket. And Bill becomes very afraid of this. He grabs his jacket and just gets the heck out of there. Then, next morning, he tells his grandparent the whole story about the lights, the jacket, and everything. And the grandparent thinks he's just making it up or he's just crazy or he doesn't believe anything. So because the jacket's ruined, he decides to use it as cushion for the bed of the dog. But the dog, when he sees the jacket, starts barking at it uncontrollably. And the grandparent becomes fearful of this. And he just decides to like burn the jacket. And the chapter concludes that all the all the kids, all the teenagers, they just move on with their lives. Bill stays in Waldo County, which is in Maine, and he just decides to live there indefinitely. And Samuel joins the Marines, and he just leaves, and he loses contact with Bill for many years. And many years later, Samuel comes back to Maine, and him and Bill catch up, and they get together to discuss old times. And then Bill casually mentions, "Hey, do you remember all those times that we went to the toad roll to watch those UFOs and all the stuff with the jacket and all that stuff?" And Samuel was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember no UFOs." and he completely forgets about everything that happened. And Bill was like, "Wow, like I'm just not gonna keep pushing this," but he just finds it surprising that Samuel completely forgot about all the incidents. And then the chapter ends saying that maybe Bill is gonna like undergo hypnotic regression to find out if more things happen during these encounters. And that's pretty much it.